Welcome back to another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover, and it's that time of the off-season. Draft season is upon us, and we're back with part one of our Fans on the Clock Draft 2026. We've gathered together 32-ish people. Too many teams have got multiple first-round picks, but somewhere in the region of 30 people to make their selections for the entirety of the first round of the NFL Draft. And we're going to analyze pick by pick as we go. It's probably my favorite episode that we do. It's our third year of it. And just me and Byron to start. Joe will join us later on. He's on the clock somewhere else. But Byron, how are you? Are you excited for Fans on the Clock 2026?
Yeah, always a really fun one. I say a labor of love, but you're the one who does most of the labor. So I don't have much to do with it, but I know it's a real labor of love. Like, it's a lot of work putting it all together. And it's just great, getting to hear from all these people and make all these connections and see what they have to say. And I think we're all looking forward to, I know it's been a fun few years of what the Saint City and me guys are going to present for us this year, because they normally go pretty hard. So I'm interested in what they do. They've got an early pick 8, so be a little while into the episode before we get to them, but I'm sure they'll have something up their sleeves. They normally do.
There's lots of highlights during the Fans on the Clock Draft, for sure. And that's definitely one of them. And it will, I can promise you, it absolutely will be one again. So please at least stick around to pick 8. Don't skip ahead. Just at least stick around to pick 8 when the New Orleans Saints are on the clock, and see what Dan and Mike have conjured up for us this year. Sensational. Not too much news, I suppose, before we actually kick off, and the Raiders are sat there on the clock, so we'll just let the Raiders pick come in. I think we know who it's going to be at number 1. But yeah, and I did nothing too much news, I suppose. Sexy Dexter Lawrence, put in a trade request with the Giants. How serious do you think that is? You think that's just a move just to get the pay he deserves? I think he's about the 10th or 11th best paid interior defensive lineman, and that certainly doesn't befit the production he's had at the position he came into the league. So he's expecting that one to get done pretty quickly with the Giants, getting him a new deal sorted?
Yeah, I would expect so, yeah. I mean, there should be a huge market if not, but it just makes so much sense to pay him. It's not like the Giants are, they're not drowning in high-level talent, so foolish to let one go away.
Yeah, I think the only other main bit of news has been Vrabel getting inside the insiders, I think. I think that's the only other bit of news that we've had, major news across the NFL. That's going to be so outdated now from when we've recorded this to when it actually goes out next week.
I think people will still remember. I think Dex Lawrence might not be getting a divorce, but maybe Rossini and Vrabel may well be. We shall see, I guess. We shall see.
We'll maybe update you on what's going on that in part 2 of Fans on the Clock Draft. But we've got picks 1 to 16 that we'll run through in this episode. You'll catch picks 17 to 32 in the coming days, maybe Thursday, Friday, so not too long to wait to part 2. But Las Vegas Raiders pick is in. The card has been handed in at the podium. We've got returning guest Levi Dombro from my favorite team blog name, Just Blog Baby, for the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah. Love it. We first got to speak to Levi last year, and he's back to give us the Raiders pick at number 1. Shall we see who Levi is taking?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah,
don't think it's going to be too much of a surprise. So over to Levi.
With the first pick in the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover, Fans on the Clock mock draft, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to make the obvious choice. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. This is a guy who has all the physical traits that you want in a franchise quarterback. He's 6'5", 236 pounds. He's got big enough hands to play at the NFL level, and he's just incredibly smart. He makes great decisions with the football. His pre-snap diagnosis is at the very top of this class, and he's an insatiably hard worker. He's going to continue to improve throughout his NFL career. He's going to behave himself off the field. He has everything that you could want in a franchise quarterback. He's great in the red zone. He's great on 3rd and longs. He's pinpoint accuracy on back shoulder throws and in contested catches. This is a no-brainer pick for the silver and black. Now it will be on the rest of the team to step up around him and for the franchise to surround him with talent so that he can maximize all of his physical tools.
Thanks to Levi Dombro there from Just Blog Baby. Favorite name of the blog for sure. And Joe's joined us in the interim. Joe's made it to the start of the draft. Of course, it's Fernando Mendoza. No surprises here. The Heisman Trophy winning national champion quarterback out of Indiana is selected 1 overall, 1 on our big board, number 1 quarterback. It is Fernando Mendoza. And yeah, how do you think he's going to fit in with the Las Vegas Raiders and a new pal of his, Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, who's already mentioned that Fernando Mendoza is going to be a great player for the Raiders. So I'm not sure if that cap could be tipped any further that they're going to be taking Mendoza in a few weeks. So that is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, it's absolute slam dunk. There's no other quarterbacks worth drafting anywhere near this early. Such a screaming need. The Raiders have had a need since Derek Carr left, and truthfully, before Derek Carr got there as well. Carr's been the best quarterback of the 21st century, I think, for the Raiders. So, yeah, I think very accurate. He's really tough. Mendoza will stand in there and take a hit. Obviously, I'd rather he didn't get hit so much. I know he's improved on that in 25, but it is something that stands out as one of the negatives against him is he does take sacks. But I think you can see comps to Matt Ryan's a really common one. But I do think he has a little more mobility. Maybe a Joe Burrow is a real high-end player who can sling the ball and can move around. And I think it's just a real good scheme fit with Clint Kubiak as well. Getting Kirk Cousins in, I think, alongside that really helps them kind of do the ideal situation. Cousins can start half a dozen, even a dozen games, maybe all season, until they feel Mendoza is ready. It just means they don't have to rush it. They're not competing for 2026 titles. So, yeah, it just puts them in a really good situation. And I just think this is I think this is the shortest odds we've ever seen a draft pick at this point. So, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Joe, what do you like about Mendoza? What do you think he's going to be able to contribute to the Raiders?
Yeah, obviously his size, his arm talent, and competitive nature, which is what he all brings to the table. And it's fairly obvious the Raiders are going QB here. I think even at least Cousins knows this year that he's being brought in at free agency, and they are drafting a quarterback. It's not the same old like it was in Atlanta, where he probably was fairly shocked when he saw that. But yeah, I think it's a clear number 1. I'm curious because we do this every year where the expectations of the number 1 quarterback is always high, but is this a year of a downturn year? So I think he's got some. He has to make some progression. I think that's why it's good having Cousins in there. He doesn't have to start straight away. You would hope he would with his talent and how accurate he is. But it was a very heavy RPO game at Indiana, and he didn't really get through to his 3rd, 4th reads. And he escaped the pocket, clean pockets a bit too early as well, which is not always ideal when you come into the NFL. You want someone who can do all of them, and he's not like the quarterback where it's like a must-have. But if he's anywhere near Matt Ryan's career, you'd be very happy being a Raiders fan if he can do that, and he looks like a solid competitor and a solid guy. So it's a no-brainer for Vegas. You get your quarterback, you've got your center in place now. So hopefully it works out for them. But as Byron said, is when Carr's your best quarterback you've had for how many years, it's not great. So good luck to him.
Yeah, maybe Rich Gannon as well. Maybe, I don't know. I was worried for the Raiders maybe like before free agency started going, well, you're going to take Mendoza at 1, like there's just you've got needs everywhere and you put him in a bad situation. That O-line's terrible, etc. But I think what they've done is enough in free agency to go, actually, you can get Mendoza in now and it's not kind of the waste of the rookie contract. You can get somebody in there and build the rest around him, and the pieces they got, Linderbaum we've mentioned, they got better on defense as well. They should, hopefully, with the improvement of the O-lines, have a real good running game, a stronger defense. Obviously, they're likely going to keep Crosby. So it's kind of potentially starting to match how that Indiana team was built. So the Indiana team of last year and what Curt Cignetti did in the program to take Indiana out of nowhere in college football to being an undefeated national champion, winning the Big Ten, winning the national championship, was strong O-line, really good running game, really, really good defense. And I think that's what the Raiders are starting to move towards in how they're building this thing. And I think they're going to get there a bit quicker than any of us give them credit for because of how they have attacked free agency. Would you have rather had the first round picks or Max Crosby? That's up for debate, but I think either way, you've got somebody there who is a huge difference maker, and that's going to help. And I think he's just putting the quarterback in positions to succeed, and that's what Indiana did really well. I think part of Mendoza's rise to being number one pick is he's played really well. He threw for over 40 touchdowns. He improved from his year 2024 at Cal to Indiana in 25 in terms of taking the sacks. Part of that was he was playing behind a much better offensive line, but the decision-making was better in 2025. It really showed a lot of progression. And yeah, I think he's in a position where a lot of the other quarterbacks that we were expecting to hear around this top end of the draft, they were just garbage in 2025. So it's a bit of a kind of a perfect storm. Interested to see kind of that Indiana team was way more than the sum of its parts. He's going into a different situation now with the Raiders. But there's some probably things there, I think, Joe Barron, you've mentioned, around his mobility that's maybe underrated and not talked about. It reminds me a lot of another former number one overall pick in Alex Smith. I think he's got that kind of sneaky little bit of athleticism about it, can break a run. He's physical, his size. He's very difficult to drag down as well, like once he gets going. And we've got a great example, probably the most memorable example from last season of that, which shows, I think, not just the physical traits of the runner, but also the mentality and that desire as a competitor. Let's show that famous play from the national championship game. It's going to go down as one of the all-time great college football plays.
Get some pass rushers back on there. Here we go. Got to get to the 8. He's going to take off and run. Mendoza weaves his way first and go diving toward the end zone. Touchdown!
Yeah, just a great play, and just that piece of huge moment in the game. In Indiana looking to go up 2 scores and potentially kill off the game against Miami in the national championship, and just that desire, that will to win. Takes 3 or 4 shots that would have downed a lot of quarterbacks potentially, and fights to get over the line. So, that's one element of his game, and I think. Very accurate, short, intermediate, deep ball, maybe needs some work. Sounds like a little Drew Brees-like from what we talked about in our March Madness bracket the other day. I think it's a good spot now. It's a much better landing spot than it was a month or so ago. Any more on Mendoza before we move to number 2? Excellent. Right, we're off to the New York Jets. First of 2 first-round picks in this draft for the Jets. We've got Olivia Peoples, former International Fan of the Year for the UK and Ireland, or from the UK and Ireland Jets fans. So let's see who Olivia takes at number 2.
With the second pick of the 2026 draft, the New York Jets select Arvel Reese, linebacker, Ohio State. And the reason why the Jets have selected Reese is because he is incredibly flexible in terms of where he plays on the defense, whether Glenn would decide to play him on the edge or more so as a linebacker or as a hybrid. He can do it all. He's 20, so he's still really young. His physical presence is exactly what the Jets need, something that they massively lacked last year. And hopefully he can come from a great Ohio State defense and really be the culture changer for Aaron Glenn.
Thanks to Olivia there from UK and Ireland Jets fans and former NFL International Fan of the Year. She was out in the draft of Green Bay last year, and instead of making a pick for the Jets on the podium this year, makes the pick for us in our Fans on the Clock draft. Hope that was as exhilarating as the one in Green Bay, Olivia. But Arvel Reese, linebacker out of Ohio State, goes. I think we're going to see a run of Ohio State players, I'm sure, quite quickly in this draft. Joe, let's start with you. Arvel Reese, what do you make of him? Again, what do you think we're going to see from him at the NFL level?
Yeah, I think this is a slam dunk pick. I think with the Jets, they need them blue chip talents, and I think he's clearly one of them. I think ever since he's come from college, everyone's just raved reviews just about his talent and also his ability. Just when you just look at his strengths, he's just basically everything you want from a defensive player. Just twitched athlete, explosive, his movement, his ability, his speed. He's able to forklift a 320-pound blocker as a blitzer as well. So And I think what's going to be great with the Jets, because they play a lot of 3-4, I think he can play on the line and off the line as well. So he could be super versatile for that Jets kind of defense, because we have him as linebacker here. I've also seen him as edge as well. Obviously, that sometimes can be a worry. We've had plenty of players who's been a hybrid, and they've just never been able to figure out where to put them. But just his 2025 tape, it was just hard to miss when you just watched Ohio State, and he was clearly there, just incredible. And there's a reason why he's always at the top of the board when you look at, just his position and also his big board as well. I've seen, obviously, he's number 2 in ours, but I've seen him in number 1 elsewhere. So I think the Jets, again, absolute huge talent here. And when you look at that defense, when having these players, we're hoping that Will McDonald takes another step up from his last year. And the defensive tackles they've got in now are starting to, they've got sweat from the Titans. So having this player like that, you get this blue chip player. He's only really young as well. I think he's only 20 years old. So again, he hopefully will be there for a long time. And I just think this is just, again, we talk about the number 1 pick. It felt fairly obvious. I feel like people are saying, this should maybe go to Bailey or elsewhere. But I just think, just make it simple. Just get the best player on the board. And I think it's clearly Arvo Reese.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, best player on the board, one of the best players on the board. As well. So yeah, absolutely. I'm interested. Again, this is the interesting one about people talk about a lot in these defensive players early on. They do a lot really well. There's a lot of flexibility. Pretty an edge, an edge player. He plays Sam linebacker. Lost in a bit of coverage potentially as a line, at that point. But I think he's just got that explosiveness. He's got kind of the his freakish traits that of speed, explosiveness, power, and yeah, it feels like you can mold him into whatever you want him to become, and I think that's the key. And is Aaron Glenn the right person to do so with the Jets? Jury's out on that. We will see. I suspect Arvo Reese will, outlast Aaron Glenn at the New York Jets by a long way. But yeah, I am very excited to see what he does. I mean, I sort of comparisons to him about, you want him to turn out maybe more like Micah Parsons and less like Isaiah Simmons, maybe, in terms of that flexibility and that duality of roles, about where you line him up, and can he be that sort of chess piece where you move him around everywhere and try and get him lost in different fronts and different looks to confuse quarterbacks and offenses. And I think you can do that with him once his game fully develops. Cool. Any more for Arvo Reese before we move on to the Arizona Cardinals?
The one thing I did just want to shout out with Reese as well. We mentioned learning under Aaron Glenn there, and I know he was a failure in Detroit, but he has played in a Matt Patricia defense in such an important role. And I think that speaks to, he's only 20 years old getting drafted. It speaks to not just his physical skills, but he's obviously very well tuned mentally, very smart player. So I think getting that kind of, the Ohio State defense is not an easy one to run off the bat, especially for such a young player who's coming out. I think that just speaks well to his adaptability coming into the league. So, yeah, I think this is a real strong pick for the Jets.
Excellent. That is Arvo Reese, number 2 for the New York Jets. Let's head to number 3, the Arizona Cardinals. In a real interesting spot. Let's see what the Cardinals do at number 3.
With the 3rd overall pick in the 2026 draft, the Arizona Cardinals will select Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. Absolute stud. And why not do a bit of forward planning for 2027 when Arch Manning is under centre?
Thanks to Sam there. Go give him a follow at UK Samo. You can get a lot of great Union Jack content, Union Jack Classic, not Union Jack content, Union Jack Classic content from Sam as part of the Union Jack Classic podcast. Hear all about that fantastic college game. We'll be bringing you loads about that as well, but check out the Union Jack Classic podcast, plus all of Sam's other endeavours as well at UK Samo. Cardinals at 3 then. Sam takes Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. This is where Love falls in our draft. What do we think? Is this, I would say, this is a bit of a luxury pick for the Arizona Cardinals. This is a pick that you're making. Well, this is not a pick you're making if you're picking number 3 in a draft, I think is what I'm getting at. You've got so many other needs and fixes that need to happen. And then you're taking the running back. Great player, one of the best players in the draft. Baron, I see you kind of pulling your face. Think you probably agreeing with where that take's going.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, I was going to say, how do you really feel, Paul? Yeah, love the player, hate the pick. Sorry, Sam. I mean, there's luxury and there's luxury. You know, this is buying a Ferrari when you can't afford to feed your kids. It's just, I just don't understand. Like, you've got Algier, you've got James Conner, you've got Trey Benson, and you've got a defense that I think was 30th or 31st in sacks last year. You've got so many, you know, pass rushers here. You've got tackles that you could improve on. You know, Paris Johnson's been fine. But across the rest of the line, I think you could improve there, truthfully. Obviously, quarterback, I think, would be wild. I'd rather take Jeremiah Love than any of the quarterbacks available, certainly. I'd rather probably put him a quarterback than any of the quarterbacks available and just play wildcat. But I just think this is so rich. I think, in reality, the Cardinals will be begging someone to come up with a trade offer here if they don't like any of the edge rushers or, you know, linebackers or, you know, premium positions, let's just say. Yeah, nothing against Jeremiah Love. I just think this is really, it's Saquon Barkley part 2. It's adding a really high-end offensive weapon in a team that isn't going to be using it effectively. I mean, the Cardinals are the longest odds to win their division this coming year. They're in with 3 beastly teams. I just don't see the plan here. You know, Sam himself mentions, you know, he'll be teaming up with Arch Manning next year, which, you know, it's kind of, that's where the ambition is. You know, 3 or 4 wins probably would be a good season, or like an acceptable season under a first-time head coach. But, like, what are you going to chance for the playoffs in Arch Manning's first year? I wouldn't. And even if they get Arch Manning, like, all things being well, if he's Joe Burrow or if he's Andrew Luck, you know, that's the kind of level he'd have to be immediately as a rookie to kind of justify this kind of pick for me. But we all love Jeremiah Love. I just hate the pick here. I would say the same thing I will say if the Titans took him. I'd probably say the same thing if the Giants took him, because I think when you're picking this early in the draft, it's for a reason, by and large. You know, these teams weren't, like, destroyed by injuries last year. They're just bad teams. And a running back is not going to paper over those cracks.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're the Cardinals at this spot, you go get either the best tackle or best lineman, the best tackle on your board, or the best, which is the edge rushers you think is the best, whether it's Bailey, Bain, whoever. I think that's where this pick should go in one of these two. You're in a position to do that and make that decision. Oh yeah, trade back and get yourself a few more resources and let one of those players can still come to you. So yeah, I think that's where we're at. But in terms of the player, absolutely love him. Joe, Joe, what do you think of Jeremiah Love? Just in general as a prospect, not necessarily to the Cardinals.
Yeah, obviously as a huge talent, explosive player. I think a great stat is that he's one of just 4 running backs weighing at least 212 pounds to run a 4.36 40-yard dash over the last 20 years or faster. So clearly he has the build and the speed, which is what you want. He's like a touchdown machine. So again, another first Notre Dame player in more than 30 years with multiple rushing and receiving touchdowns in the same game as well. So he has all the abilities. And he's clearly the number 1 running back in this draft. And yeah, I think it's funny Byron's mentioned Barkley. You can even just look at last year, just Ashton Jeanty. Coming out, everyone's like, he's clearly like incredible. He's going to do all this. And then he didn't have a great first year because he was a terrible team. But yeah, he would be great for a lot of teams. I'm curious if anyone would just like gamble to just trade up to get him here. Would it be a bit rich to pick number 3 running back and also have to give up draft capital? But he is, he's incredible, and he's able to do a lot. I think some of the weaknesses, just looking at it, is he is a bit of can be sometimes be like a Hollywood rusher where he wants to have that big play and he might not just hit the gaps when the gaps are there just to get them, how he's schemed up for them yards. But when he certainly hits them lanes, he certainly can go big and he can do incredible plays. So as a player, I'll be super happy. But yeah, I get looking at next year, but you just can't think that way because they could finish 5th in the draft pick and then they're picking like a
running back.
Another running back, a second-rate quarterback, and it doesn't always work out how you want it to be. So yes, I think it's a bit too early, a bit too rich. But in terms of player-wise, yeah, it'd be awesome. And they've just like bringing in Tyler Algier as well with James Conner to get a 3rd running back would be a very stacked room. What they need to do.
Well, should we have a quick look at some of Jeremiah Love's explosiveness? Excellent. Right, let's pop it on the screen. Where's my favourite play of his from last season? It's incredible.
Meeting that. Love.
Jeremiah Love with a spin. Here he goes. Jeremiah Love. A 56-yard touchdown run with a spin move.
The spin's incredible. It is
I'm just seeing this next year. It's like the Cardinals reduce a deficit 31-6.
Feel like there's also the Cardinals. You need, yeah, I mean, we're not picking on Sam, but like the Cardinals also like you need to sell tickets. So you need to have people wanting to come watch the team, and it's tough to do that when kind of so they got rid of Kyler, and there's just no real ambition around him at the minute, and it's tough to. As Sam kind of said, it's about looking at 2027. It's hard to punt on an entire NFL season, and it's tricky. But I love that play. It's incredible, just that ability to put the foot in the ground and spin. And he has that bit where you sort of mentioned kind of about that Hollywood running style, but when he kind of sees it and he hits it, just the how quickly he goes through the gears to get from just going to hitting top speed is phenomenal. Just how smooth he is and how quickly he runs and how quickly he can get to that top speed. And it's so hard to bring him down. There's loads of examples of plays where he's kind of getting through first, second, and third contact, and punishing runner as well as the kind of the home run highlight threat as well. Cool. Right, we're ready for pick number 4. All right. So Transatlantic Titans, who are making the pick for the Tennessee Titans. Let's see who they take at number 4.
So why David Bailey at number 4? Well, it's quite simple, really. Good edge rush. He is 6'3". He is coming off of a season where he got 14.5 sacks, constantly pressured the quarterback, and that's really what the Titans were missing last year. Of course, you could go Bain at this point, but I've got concerns around his arms. And for me, I think Bailey is that edge rusher that, would deserve that chip off a tight end or something like that. With Jeffrey Simmons already getting double teamed a lot of the time, and our additions in free agency, I just see that as a really good pick personally. Of course, there's all the rumours and hype around Love, but I just can't see us wanting to pay that much for a running back at this point. So yeah, Bailey is at number 4, and I think actually that would work out really well for Salah's defence as well. A wide 9 technique player, and see what he can do off the edge. Cheers.
Thanks to Harry there from the Transatlantic Titans with the number 4 pick in the Fans on the Clock 2026 draft. The Tennessee Titans select David Bailey, edge, Texas Tech. What do we think of this? It's kind of the first of the edge players off the board, drops to the Titans at 4. Do we think this is a good fit? Do you think Bailey's going to mesh in well with what Robert Saleh is going to be trying to do with that Titans defense?
Sorry, Charlie's very excited about the Titans pick here. I think this is a great pick. I think, you've got a couple of players who I think are contention for best edge in the class, and I think David Bailey's certainly one of them. And I think, you look at what Robert Saleh's building along that defensive line now. You've got, obviously, Jeffrey Simmons. You had John Franklin Myers in free agency, trade for Jermaine Johnson in free agency as well, and now you bring in David Bailey, and I think you're really going to, I think they do need help on the secondary, but at this point, I think it'd be a bit of a reach to go one of the corners here. And David Bailey, I think he's someone who could really come in and make an impact week 1. Charlie agrees, as he's very adamant here. But I think this is a kind of, there's a lot of ways the Titans can go. They do have a lot of holes to fill. And it's really, do you want to put investment in Robert Saleh and his defense, or do you maybe overpay and bring in a wide receiver for Cam Ward or a tackle for Cam Ward to get the most out of him? I think with the players available, I think this makes the most sense. I think this is an instant impact player and really should make that defense a pretty scary front 4, certainly.
Yeah, I think kind of his development last year, kind of going from Stanford to Texas Tech, and he dominated the Big 12 in 13.5 sacks. I think he finished 2nd overall in the country, 17.5 tackles for loss, and he was just a beast. He just completely dominated against some old lines and made some really, really good players look very, very foolish. He was just a beast. So very, very excited to see him make that next step. Joe, from what you've seen of David Bailey, how do you expect him to kind of take to the NFL?
Yeah, obviously, I think he's still got a lot to learn, but obviously going to Bob Saleh helps massively. He's clearly an explosive kind of edge rusher, so he's going to get to the quarterback. He's got a great bend, and he can close that speed really well. But he just needs improvement in some of the run game, and also when he has to he has got power, but to use that when he has to use his disruptive rush pieces and try and get that way, he still needs improving. But like I said, having Bob Sala there to coach him up could be huge for him. I think the Titans are the really interesting ones of where they're going to go as well, because they definitely need, like you said, edge, but they also need weapons for Cam Ward. It could be, we're going to go another year where Ridley is number one wide receiver. So they're in a curious one where it feels like edge is probably where they should go, but seeing all them wide receivers available just to tempt them to help Cam Ward out, because he is the franchise, and Bob Sala has shown he can coach up defenses without having all blue chip talent. And do we need to improve that offense? But it makes sense going David Bailey, where it feels like he's a solid player, where he's got his explosive talent, his quick twitch, but he needs some improvement. There has been some talk about his maturity off the field, where you have to think about that. But apparently he's improved this year throughout the year. So that's certainly one to think about. But great pick. When you're picking four, you're probably getting a blue chip talent. It's just where the Titans will go, where they want to improve.
Yeah, I think again rare with kind of the top of the first round pass rushers that they have like a full arsenal of like the pass rush moves already. You can go inside and go outside. He's got the dip, he's got the bend, he can hand fight quite well. He does it all really, really well. And normally it's like they can do maybe like one or two of those things, and then you develop the rest. Actually, he's quite advanced, I think, to a lot of talents from a pass rushing technique and ability than what we see going in kind of the top of the first round. So I think that makes the transition from college to the NFL so easy, because he's just going to give tackles and just so many things to think about. You've got to defend everything against him, and he's only going to get better at all of those things at the next level. And I think the landing spot's great with Salah in Tennessee. I think he's going to develop into kind of one of the top tier NFL edge rushers very, very quickly, and be a kind of that top echelon of the players that we talk about at the minute. So very excited to see David Bailey, and I'm sure the people in Tennessee are as well. Any more on David Bailey?
I just think we didn't get enough photography puns in.
We didn't, yeah. So yeah, missed the trick there.
He is great off the snap, though. Let's give him that one at least.
Hey, excellent, right? We should have spent more time developing it, really, shouldn't we? But let's move on to pick number 5. The New York Giants are on the clock, and we will leave the photography puns right here.
Kevin here from the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. With the 5th pick in the Fans on the Clock draft, the New York Giants select Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State.
Thanks to Kevin there from from Big Blue UK and Ireland. Follow those guys for everything New York Giants related here in the UK. They have a great podcast, and have some influence on the Irish NFL show, I believe, as well. Craig, one of the guys, works on there. So thanks for the pick, guys. It's Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State, the second Ohio State linebacker to go within the first 5 picks. And feels like Styles was kind of pegged to go maybe that 8 to 12 area, and then he just was a beast at the combine, and his stocks really seems to have risen. Byron, what do you think of kind of if the Giants end up getting Sonny Styles here? Does he feel like a good fit for the Giants and new head coach John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I think absolutely he is. Yeah, very disappointed he had such a good combine. This is kind of my dream cowboy fit, if I'm being truly honest. I think a lot of people are saying it, and I think it's a really easy comparison to make, and I'm going to do the same. He looks like Fred Warner, and he's not a pass rusher. He's just an all-round linebacker. And you look at John Harbaugh's history of linebackers as a head coach. Ray Lewis, first-round pick that he inherited, to be fair. C.J. Mosley, first-round pick. Patrick Queen, first-round pick. Roquan Smith, they traded for, gave him a league record-setting extension, highest-paid linebacker in the NFL. It makes total sense that they would adapt this position here. I think Sonny Styles is completely pro-ready. Like I say, it's hard to say like he's going to be the next Fred Warner, because Fred Warner is probably the best off-ball linebacker in the league, but he has all them traits that you would look for. And it is, you know, they've got Tremaine Edmonds in free agency, but it is a position of need. And I just think it's a perfect skill set match. They've got, let's presume they're keeping Dexter Lawrence. They've got the edge rushers sorted. It's a little rich for a cornerback. And I think offensively, you know, you could maybe go tackle, but I think Sonny Styles is just such a solid pick that it's really hard to see him failing or being a bust. I think he's just going to be a starter week 1 and throughout his, you know, rookie contract.
Yeah, I'd say I love him. Same as you. I was kind of hoping he might be in a situation where the Cowboys at 12 and he's there and maybe you need to move. But yeah, it's just not going to be the case come draft night. So I think he's a great pick if he ends up with the Giants. I think, yeah, they've got the front that you mentioned, you know, that's going to develop and get even better. You expect Abdul Carter to make a leap and they keep Sexy Dexy and that front's great. I think there's a case to say that Sonny Styles is better than Arvel Reese as well. And Arvel Reese, I think, is going to be great. I really think he's probably the better of the two. We're in a position here where, all likelihood, all 3 of the Ohio State linebackers go in the first round. They are that good. And I think Styles probably a little bit sometimes overlooked. But that explosion at the combine is probably just, going to limit that now. And I think he's right there and probably he's a little bit better than Reeves. His path's interesting, the conversion from safety, I think we touched on. In 2024, 2025, playing at linebacker. And I think because of his size as well, he's 6'5", 240. I wonder if he just gets converted to an edge at some point. Like, I wonder if a couple of years he just plays pure. And I think we talked about a little bit that always about Micah Parsons sort of piece of around. Like, I think you can play him as a middle linebacker, but I think he could develop and play edge as well. I think his possibilities with him are almost endless. So, and that's really exciting. Again, you've got a lot of flexibility with the Giants because you're potentially stacking that defense and you've got a lot of them to pay potentially. And actually having him as a flexible piece in 3-4 years' time makes some of those decisions a bit easier gives you more options. Joe, what do you make to Sonny Styles at the Giants?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, it seems like it's the consensus pick now with the Giants. Like you said, it has moved up and it feels like that number 5 slot is perfect for them. Obviously, the Giants have taken a lot of defensive, you said linebackers, edges over the last few years, and they need to start, producing as a team in terms of you getting all these high draft picks, but they've never been a super scary defense, I don't think, in the last few years with how much talent they've got. So I think it's a great pick. Like as Byron said, it works perfectly with their need as well, and it depends how John Harbaugh sets up, but he does love his linebackers, and he normally likes 1 or 2 outstanding ones to set the tone for this defense. And if Abdul Carter does take that huge step, then it could be a very scary defense in terms of the amount of talent out there. It's just kind of now producing on the pitch, but it's a great pick. And I'd be curious on draft night if they do go Styles, if he goes like Faith or does Reese now. Like you said, it feels like the conversation is certainly ramping up of who is actually the better linebacker in terms of prospect, and right go both of them in New York, it seems like, with the consensus pick. So it's a fun and interesting comparison and outlook in terms of how it'll work out.
Excellent. Yeah, he's number 6 on our big board and our second ranked linebacker. But yeah, Sonny Styles to the New York Giants. Thanks again to Big Blue, UK and Ireland for the pick and taking part. We're on to the Cleveland Browns. So let's head over to our Cleveland Browns representative and see who they take at number 6.
Hey guys, UK Browns fan here, and with the 6th pick in the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Monroe Freeling, tackle out of Georgia. Big surprise for many. I can already hear the oohs, the ahs. The reason being, for me, I believe that the gap between the top tackles in this draft that would be available at 6 versus 24 is a bigger gap than the wide receivers that would be available at 6 versus 24. It's basically as simple as that. Monroe Freeling, I'm a lot higher on than a lot of people. I believe he has the upside to be not just the best projected left tackle, but the best tackle overall in this draft class. All of the upsides, all the physical traits, and a year of great tape at Georgia. So my preference, my perfect case, best case scenario for the Browns in the real draft would be to trade back here. I tried to trade back even in this mock And obviously that would be the best case scenario, trade back, still get Monroe Freeling where maybe people think he should be slotted and think the value is better. But if you're forced to pick at 6, I am more than happy to take Monroe Freeling, and that is why I've gone with Monroe Freeling in this draft and with this pick. If you guys want to check out me talking about the Cleveland Browns, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube at UK Browns NFL. But enjoy the rest of the draft.
Thanks to Ollie there. Go give him a follow at UK Browns fan, also part of the Sleep at Work network. No thank you for the spoilers, though, as it tells you who the Browns also picked at 24. So appreciate that, Ollie. But the Browns with the number 6 pick take Monroe Freeling, tackle out of Georgia. A little bit of maybe a surprise one potentially. Could be considered, in a lot of big boards and a lot of rankings, people have other 1 or 2 other tackles potentially ahead of Monroe Freeling. So it could be surprised that he would be the first one off the board. But I've seen in plenty of mocks, Mel Kuypers and a few others, that the Freeling goes to the Browns here at 6. So I'm real interested in terms of kind of what the Browns they do take and what the Browns see is the difference. Maybe has the potential for development is more on Monroe Freeling, and he's potentially a bit more of a project. But I think his size, he's 6'7", 315 pounds. He's huge. He's got long arms as well. So he's got all the things that should potentially make him a really, really strong tackle in the NFL. What do you make of Freeling at 6 to the Browns in our draft here, Joe?
Yeah, it makes sense why they're going tackle, especially left tackle. When you look at the moves they've made this off-season, it's been trying to fix that offensive line, which is got very old very quickly and is very expensive. So they managed to bring in some pieces to re-sign. So they've got Titus Howard and Elton Jenkins, and they've brought in Telvin Jenkins as well. So is that left tackle Wes Jones currently? You're thinking that's the area that they need to attack. I'm similar to you. He has the skills and the prospect, but we've seen him in over the last all drafts really like going a bit too high on tackle. If it hits, it's perfect, but there's been plenty of tacklers who've gone around this area where it hasn't quite worked out. I'm looking at some of his comps. One of them was Colton Miller for the Raiders a few years ago, where he hasn't got a Pro Bowl. Yes, he's like a solid starter, but he's not a thing special, especially going this high. And just where Monroe is sitting. Yeah, I think most draft boards has Fano and Margaret as higher than him. So it is a risk. It is a need, though. Obviously, it's one of them. Obviously, all these draft picks, if it hits, it'll be perfect. You do worry that he's only had 1 full season with the Bulldogs as a starter. He may have had, he played half season the year before, but he had to have shoulder surgery. So that's where you're risking the traits and what his potential is to what he's shown a longer time over his period at college. So I understand it. I understand why they're going that. They need to fix that offensive line, but you would be tempted with that wide receiver still on there with, I've seen a lot of people draft Tate there to the Browns to get that true number 1 wide receiver where they haven't had that for quite some time to help the quarterbacks out. I think it's a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, he's interesting. I saw a bit of a reach in an article I read, compared his, I suppose, combine performance to Joe Thomas. If he ends up anything like Joe Thomas, then the Browns have hit an absolute home run here. But I think that's a bit of a stretch and a bit of a reach, certainly, to compare him to one of the all-time greats in Joe Thomas. But yeah, I think he's got a lot of, a lot of the, I suppose, coaching stuff should hopefully be the easiest stuff to coach him and bring him up on, and should improve his game. I think he's really, really good in the run game for sure, and he's got the basis of to being a really, really good pass protector, which developed well with the right coaching, and then combine that again with the athleticism and just the size of him. I think he's got everything. He's got the kind of the foundation to be a really, really good NFL tackle. And if the Browns take him as the first one off the board, or if he goes as the first one on the board, I think they're just seeing, look at the ceiling could be huge. It's just going to take a bit of work to lift up the floor, I think. So I think good pick, fits the need, as you mentioned. And that's what they need to do. Browns kind of rebuilding again. They really need to rebuild the trenches and getting a solid O-line for whoever the hell is going to be playing quarterback behind it, whether it's Shador or Deshaun Watson or whoever it ends up being come September. So Yeah, good pick. Thanks to Ollie again at UK Browns fan, and make sure you go give him a follow and catch him on the Sleep at Work network as well. We're on to pick number 7. We're off to the capital. We're off to the Commanders. We've got an international fan of the year making the pick. So let's go over and see who the Washington Commanders take at pick number 7. Thanks to Andy Burrows there, international fan of the year for 2025-26 for the Commanders. And he's going to be out in Pittsburgh for the draft representing the Washington Commanders. Maybe make a pick. That usually happens. We'll see. Hopefully he does, and that'd be great to see. But he's made a pick in the Good Teams Win, Great Teams cover, Fans on the Clock draft, which is arguably the greater honour. And that pick is another Ohio State wide receiver going towards the top of the first round. It's Carnell Tate from the Ohio State Buckeyes. What do we make a Tate to the Commanders? It feels like these Ohio State wide receivers, you just keep churning them out. It's wide receiver university, I think, at the minute. Ohio State, ones we've seen coming out over the last few years. But what do you make a Tate to the commies?
Yeah, I think another one like Sonny Styles, just really good combination of need and fit. If you could have a room full of Ohio State wide receivers, you'd be really happy with it. David Blau, the new OC in Washington, has talked about it's his mission basically to get Terry McLaurin 10 targets a game. Well, I think there's more chance that you move Terry McLaurin into the slot to open up some of them targets and let Carnell Tate play the deeper, more intermediate routes. And they are desperately crying out for a wide receiver. Their number 2 wide receiver on the depth chart right now is Treylon Burks, Luke McCaffrey in the slot. After that, it's really who's who of never going to make it. Diami Brown, Van Jefferson. Jacoby Jones is still on the roster, apparently. So a huge need. In Unleash Jaden Daniels, I think he's got to be a sneaky, real maybe comeback player, offensive player of the year kind of shout next year. I think really interested to see what this offense does. And I think Carnell Tate brings it to a big next level compared to what they have right now.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. I think Carnell Tate's real interesting because I suppose part of the Ohio State wide receiver university, I suppose, problem potentially if you're a receiver coming out there at times. And like 2024, he plays like a third option behind Amika Igbuka and Jeremiah Smith, who kind of came on as like a freshman, and then Jeremiah Smith's still there. But 2025, he kind of developed. 2024, he's more just like the straight vertical threat. Wasn't particularly polished. Wasn't great route runner, etc. He worked on that in the offseason 2025 and then showed through the season last year just how good he really is. And he's technically a very good wide receiver as well as having the explosion, the speed. I think size is good. He's 6'3", just shy of 200 pounds. Probably put a little bit of weight on as well. And just, his ability to kind of high point the ball as well and really good at contested catches. He reminds me a little bit of George Pickens, a little bit. Yeah. He's got a little with less dramatic than George, but reminds me a bit of George Pickens. With especially that contested catch ability. But I think he could be a really, really true number 1 for the Commanders. And you pair that then maybe with a McLaurin who can then maybe go thrive elsewhere that you mentioned in the slot and maybe over the middle a little bit more and things like that. We've not seen too much out of McLaurin. But Joe, what do you make Tate to the commies at 7? I'll call them the full name Commanders and not the commies.
Yeah, I think they'll be super happy with obviously this pick right here. It feels like he's the consensus number 1 wide receiver across all boards. So you getting that in there, obviously huge upside again. Ohio State wide receiver, especially over the last few years. And Pickens was my comp as well. I think even like Chris Olave, that kind of player, and him coming from that where he may have not had, where he had to go against multiple defenders because how good Ohio is. So coming to the Commanders team who already have an established wide receiver, and obviously there's talk about them getting Ayuk as well. So then you go from what Byron's depth chart said to them when if you've got Tate, Ayuk, and Scary Terry, it's a scary, proposition for when you're facing this Commanders. And just how good he is at contest catches, just down the field. I think he had the most. He caught 12 out of 14 contested catches when he's 50-50 ball, and just his downfield threat. He was number 2 in the FBC with 9 catches over 40+ yards in 2025. So he has the ability. He may not be the best in yak yards, but that's when you get someone. If you do bring Brandon Ayuk, like Luke McCaffrey, that's their job, and his is just to blow the top up. And having that 1-2-3 combination, we've seen time and time again now in the NFL that you can't just have that one true wide receiver. You need to have across the board different styles and plenty of opportunities for catches. So I think this is a great pick for them, and they'll be great. Obviously, they need to improve that defense, which is, he's getting older than, but they did make some good moves in free agency. But I think if he's on the board there and someone hasn't taken before, you would run up and say, let's get our wide receiver room sorted, because he's a future Pro Bowler, All Pro when Scary Taylor's not getting any younger. So you're setting yourself up for the future. So I love this pick for the Commanders.
Excellent.
So I was going to say just one last thing. I think that note on the golden touch, on the contested catches is really well said. I think they're really looking for him to have the golden touch.
Very good. Thanks to Andy Burrows, International Fan of the Year for Washington Commanders. And there's a great noughties indie gag in there for you if you're paying attention. Can will take first wide receiver off the board from Ohio State. Are you ready for the next one, guys? Because it's time for the New Orleans Saints. And we know that means it's time for Dan and Mike from the Saints, the City, and me. Phenomenal New Orleans, not just Saints, but New Orleans in general podcast. Two fantastic guys. I had the pleasure of meeting them and having a pint with them, and hopefully we will be doing that again sometime soon. This is phenomenal. So sit back, relax, and watch who the Saints, City, and me take at pick 8 of the Fans on the Clock draft.
Welcome from Dan and Mike at the Saints, the City, and me podcast.
We're delighted to be back to make our third pick in the mock draft, but this time we want to make it a bit different. We want to make you feel like you're in New Orleans, so we're gonna take you to New Orleans to make our pick. You ready, Mike?
I am.
Let's go.
Pick 8, Saints on the stage, real clean. Fix the back end of the D with a dream. Smart safety, range like he covers both sides. Quarterback's nervous when he's reading their eyes from the Buckeyes. Yeah, you know the type. High IQ player, everything done right. Slide in smooth, make the whole unit clip. Now the secondary's got a brand new fit. Yeah, you know me, you down with C-A-L-E-B. Yeah, you know me, you down with C-A-L-E-L-E-B. Say it properly, future the Saints team. Sanka on the rise, two young safeties, yeah, you see the design. One brings the range, one brings the tone. Now the back end finally holding its own. The skies rose, yeah, we switching the shell. Pre-snap picture, you can't really tell. Ball in the air, that's getting shut down. Welcome to the league, that's catered down. Oh, just to make it sweeter, if you please. Grew up rapping black and gold like a proper fan of the New Orleans Saints. Now he's the pick, that's what we call. Championship behavior.
Let's start off with a round of applause for Dan and Mike. Just absolutely sensational Wrote a whole goddamn song to make the draft pick, embodying the spirit of New Orleans. Eternally grateful. We love you guys. Thank you ever so much. And yeah, it's going to be, as always, it's going to be tough to beat that pick video because, I mean, how do you beat that? So appreciate all the effort all the time. And it's worth it because you've picked Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, he's not a wide receiver. I don't know why I've put wide receiver on the graphic. He's a safety. Definitely a safety. Out of Ohio State. Yet another Ohio State player. Our fourth Ohio State player picked in the first 8 picks. Yeah. Caleb Downs, what do you think? For me, I think he is, obviously he's on the best, the big board, ranked number 9 overall. For me, this is the number 1 player in the 2026 draft class. He is unbelievable. Kind of, yeah, the year at Alabama, 2 years then at Ohio State, instant impact player. Can do it all at safety. It reminds you of kind of the safety, those great safeties we just did, kind of talked about some of those in our previous episode, the March Madness one that we did for the best draft picks. Like Ed Reeds and Eric Berry, like those legendary safety names. He's got all of those abilities. He's got the size, the speed. He's great in the run game, great in the box, also great in coverage as well. I think he could probably play a bit of corner as well. Plays man coverage really well. Just does a lot of things to level. So, yeah, the Saints are getting a great one here, and I think he's the best player in the draft. What do we think, gents?
Hard to disagree. I think he's one of them few blue chip elite prospects in this draft. Whether that's 4 or 5 of them, or in that number, I think he's certainly in that top bucket of them. The only negative you ever hear is that safety isn't a super valuable position, but I love the idea of going and getting it. I think it comes well to you said like Eric Berry. I think Buda Baker for like a current player. The Saints got Justin Reed and Julian Blackman in at safety currently, and I think he's an instant, higher impact player as a rookie than those 2 players are. I think it raises leadership qualities on that defense, which could be lacking if Cam Jordan doesn't re-sign. They're going to need big personalities in there, and it does kind of feel a little like the Saints are maybe a year ahead of schedule as well, with Tyler Shough showing such promise. They don't need to rush in and gamble on like a Ty Simpson or go out and spend money on Kirk Cousins or ask Derek Carr to come back or what have you. And I think, this could just be a really solid franchise builder there. Got Brandon Staley in at DC now, who, had his issues as an OC, head coach, certainly, but as a defensive coordinator, I don't think he's ever really been questioned too much. And I think he's just one of them players, Downs, where if you have any kind of competent DC, they're just going to get such value out of moving him around, become that chess piece, become your Kyle Hamilton. I know those are lofty comparisons, the highest paid safety in the NFL, but I think that is Caleb Downs' ceiling, truthfully. So great pick, great video. And yeah, if Downs can live up anywhere near to that video, then they've got a probable Hall of Famer in their midst.
For sure. Joe, what do you make of Caleb Downs then, safety to Ohio State to the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I think Byron said most of it. It would be a great pick again. Number 1 way is the easy number 1 safety. Then, like you said, is he like draft? People are saying could he be the number 1 defensive player on the board? And you've just said maybe the best player on the board. So I think, again, they'll be running up there. I think the only decision they'll have to make, do they want the safety, like I said, what Byron's mentioned, like the positional value, or would they take a gamble on one of the edges which are available, just because they need to improve that as well? I think they're just a team, especially on defense, need to get a lot younger and a lot better, get these blue chip guys. But yeah, I don't think there'll be any complaints in New Orleans if they get Caleb Downs, just to get a solid piece there where you see, is he a Saint for life? You have that sorted. He reads the game like he's playing chess. He's just one of them players which just has that instincts and that know-how where you just revolve everything around him, and that part of the field is sorted, and then you just have to work on it elsewhere. So another great pick, and the New Orleans Saints.
He's one of the players I think that I can see. I just picture Caleb Downs in gold, in the Superdome, and it just looked right. So thanks again, Dan, Mike. Appreciate it. Go follow the Saint City and me, guys. You'll hear about all their adventures and regular trips to New Orleans, as well as their kind of thoughts and feelings on the Saints themselves. Great podcast, great guys, and thank you for being a part of the Fans on the Clock Draft 2026. Again, chaps, I'm already looking forward to 2027. So we'll see what we can come up with next year. On to the first of two Kansas City Chiefs picks. We've got friend of the show and our reigning and probably only ever mastermind champion, Tom Kraft, making the pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he's doing double duty as well. So we'll see if he spoils the later pick in his first video or not. So let's see who Tom takes at number 9 for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hi, this is Crafty Sports. I am a member of the AAW Network and co-host the Hurdle the Line podcast on the AAW Network. I also co-host Midnight Sports with my friend Ollie, UK Browns NFL. And I'm going to be doing the Chiefs first round picks for the 2026 Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover NFL Draft. So I think at pick 9 that the Chiefs go Ruben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami. I think even though the arm size is something that people are questioning, I just think that speed to power rush that he has, the get off, that explosiveness is something that translates to the NFL. And I just think that he's going to be an absolute monster. And I would love to see him as the edge rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think he would fit really well. It's an area that the Chiefs need massively. So I think that's where they potentially go. And then
thanks to Tom Kraft there. You can catch him Midnight Sports, another member of the Sleep at Work network. You can catch him on Hurdle the Line and the rest of the content that the guys produce over there. So go give them all a watch and a follow. And Tom has selected Ruben Bain Jr., edge out of Miami, for the Chiefs' first of two first-round picks at number 9. What thoughts on Bain to the Chiefs?
Really, really dynamic. And again, just another, we've seen a few of these in a row now with Tate, Downs, and now Bain. I think like blue chip prospects, best at their position. You know, we've got that David Bailey, Ruben Bain argument, but certainly in that contention. And this is the one where it's like the last one that I'd love the Cowboys to have had a fall here and get to 12. I think he's just dynamite immediately. I don't care about how long his arms are. He's an elite pass rusher immediately. Again, not bothered that he skipped workout at the combine either. We've seen it on tape what he can do, who he is. Incredible bend, incredible dip. Coached by Hall of Famer Jason Taylor as well, notably. And yeah, I think when you look at the Chiefs pass rushing room, obviously you've got George Karlaftis, who we all rate, but opposite him, there's really not much. Chris Jones, I think it's fair to say he's going to wind down. I'd say maybe had a little bit of a wind down last year, truthfully, and it's going to continue, you'd expect. So, you know, the Chiefs don't pick in the top 10 very often. In fact, I think last time they picked 10 was Patrick Mahomes himself. I don't think they've traded up in that time, and certainly haven't finished in a position like this in a long time. So I think you get a prospect who can be, again, an all-pro in his first rookie contract, or in his rookie contract. So, yeah, this is the one where, you know, after seeing Downs go, Styles go, Bailey go, I'm like, oh, Bain I'd really love to see fall to Dallas, but I think this is a home runner for the Chiefs, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think, I'm interested to kind of see the role that he takes on in the NFL, because I think he's another one. We've talked about some of these defensive players so far who can do multiple things. He's 275, but he's quite kind of, I don't know, he's not sure. He's like stout, like almost like barrel-like build, which maybe is a horrible slight. But obviously he's very, very explosive. But there's an element of going, well, if you put on a bit more size, you might even be able to play like inside as well, as like a D tackle sort of position. But I think the edge is obviously is where he's best suited. I think that gives him the power, the speed channel on the outside. You know, I think he could become like a bit of a situational game wrecker. I think just his ability to pressure the passer has just exponentially got better throughout his time at Miami the last couple of years. So he's part of that team that had run to the national championship game. That's kind of really brought that Miami to the fore of college football. He's been a huge, huge reason why as well. So yeah, I really, really like the pick. I'd be shocked if he doesn't go inside the top 10. Be interested to see which one is the first one to actually go off the board in the come draft night, whether it's Bailey or Bain. I think it is going to be one of those two. So I think, again, similar to Bailey, he's got quite developed, or certainly 2 or 3 pass rush moves that are already quite developed. Again, a rarity to see. With these guys in the first round, usually they're good at maybe one, or it's just all speed or all power. I think he's got a few good options, and that'll see him have the ability to have early success. Joe, what do you think, Bain, to the Chiefs?
Yeah, I think this is a great pick. I think I was going to mention him coming inside or going outside. He could obviously early downs put him outside, but because obviously we've seen the Chiefs with Chris Jones that put him on the outside sometimes. So having someone who could like switch but keep on the field and other sub packages, I think it'd be great. Like you mentioned, with what their defense is showing, it's not going to be the defense can't just put a tight end on him and try and like block him out. I think he's too strong for that. So I think again, the Chiefs are a really interesting one because I'm not questioning where they're going to go, but wherever they get, they're going to get a great play and improving that defense with what they've got and the defensive coordinator they've got there. I think he'll be able to make the most out of his talent. I'm curious, just like you mentioned, some of his strengths. I think obviously like some of his weaknesses is not as super bendy or is more powerful than explosive, and you always have that worry. He's been playing against college tackles, so when he comes up against real men, real grown, especially ones with the long arms and the ones which can close this space and prevent him from getting that kind of runway, how will he adapt to that? So having them moves will certainly help, but can he transition into being one of the best edge rushers when he comes into the NFL? Because you're not just going to play against these college type tackles, you're going to be playing against real grown men, and so it might take him a year or two to grow into that, but having the players around him where they're not expecting him to be that true pass rusher number one, which is going to save our defense. It's just going to be one of the 3 pieces to help out, especially on that line. So I think it's a good pick, and it's a future pick once Chris Jones is probably going to retire in the next few years coming up to take over the mantelpiece to be the true number one guy on that defense, to wreak havoc, to when you've got the offense and the QB sorted, just make that defense better, and we'll place him in the Super Bowl again in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I feel like if it's just Spags who's going to love him if the Chiefs get him. Yeah. Be a great fit, and he'll have lots of ways to kind of dial things up, especially blitz in the fourth quarter and things like that to kind of get Bain being a bit of a game wrecker. So it takes that mantle on from Chris Jones maybe. Well, that's Ruben Bain to the Chiefs. Thanks Tom Kraft again, our reigning, possibly defending. Good teams win, great teams cover. Mastermind champion. Right, let's round out the top 10. It's the Cincinnati Bengals next. Let's go over to Cincy and see who they take at pick number 10.
With the 10th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Mansour Delane, cornerback from LSU. So thanks, guys. You've just left me with a nightmare scenario. All the top targets have gone. Reese, Styles, Bailey, Bain, they're all off the board, even Caleb Downs. And that matters because this defence has holes everywhere. After an underwhelming free agency, the Bengals come into this draft needing help at the edge, at linebacker, and in the secondary. And at this point, you either reach, which this front office has a history for. I'm looking at you, Jackson Carman and Billy Price. Or you take the best defensive player available. And I think I've done that with Delane, who is arguably the top corner in this class. At Virginia Tech and LSU, he posted over 190 tackles, 8 interceptions, and more than 40 pass breakups. He's 6 foot tall, weighs 190 pounds, and has mid 4.4 speed. So athletically, he ticks all the boxes. But this pick is more about fit. Dax Hill and DJ Turner are coming off strong seasons, and they're both entering contract years. Decisions are coming. They're going to be expensive, and the Bengals might not pay both. If you pick Delane, you can rotate him in early. He can develop without being thrown straight into the fire from the start. So in this worst case scenario, where all the top targets have gone, I still think Cincinnati can get a high upside, scheme versatile defensive back. It's probably not the pick that fans want. But in this scenario, if you can't fix the pass rush, you've got to fix the coverage. And I think Delane helps with that. Who dey?
Thanks to Sean Tyler there, the Cincinnati Bengals writer for Huddle UK. So make sure you check out Sean's great articles. He writes some funny stuff. As you can see from the video there, he's got dry wit, but he's a lovely fella and a great writer as well. So thanks, Sean, for the pick. He takes Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU. First of the corners off the board and rounds out the top 10. What do we make then of Delane then going to the Bengals? As Sean said, they've got a lot of holes they need to fill on that defense.
Yeah, and I think they're now going to be calling him Who Delane, is my take on his immediate nickname going to Cincinnati. And again, not much I can say really that Sean didn't. I think he's a really solid prospect. And I think crucially what he done that Will Johnson, I guess, from Michigan famously last year did not do is come off his ACL, and he shows that he's back ready now. He got ran a 4.38 at his pro day, I believe it was, or certainly low 4.4s. Daniel Jeremiah's number one corner. I've seen him comp to Quinion Mitchell, which I mean, you've certainly taken Cincinnati's defense. I just think he's maybe as close to a lockdown corner as you're going to get in this draft. Him showing that he's ready to go, I think, is huge. No fall coming down the board for him that might have happened again, referencing Will Johnson from last year. And again, I can't remember who it was now, but someone said like he's got the best pure cornerback skills, blocking out tight coverage since Derek Stingley, who, has again went and got the bag since. So I think this is a real strong pick for Cincinnati. Certainly an area of need, as Sean says. If you can't get a pass rusher, you've got to help the coverage. And I don't think there's anyone better available to do so. So, yeah, real strong pick.
Yeah, I really like this fit. It's obviously need as well. And I think, he probably is. I think he's the number one corner on the board based on kind of the others. I think, he's got the opportunity just to take your best weapon away. The rate he forces incompletions, the quarterback passer rating he allowed last season was like 26 or 27. Played in the SEC as well, which, it's big plays, big wide receiver threats, and he's managed to lock them down. I think he started pretty much all 4 years in college as well, so he's got a lot of experience, a lot of game time, and for me, I think he is combination of size and speed, which you need now in the modern NFL. Like you need to have both at the position, really. I think to excel. I think again, he's another one, flexibility. I think that's a key for a trend for a lot of these top 10 picks on defense. It's been majority defense so far, is that flexibility. He can play outside, he can play inside, he can play nickel, slot. He can do a lot of different things to a very, very high level. I think a really, really slam dunk pick for the Bengals if he goes at 10. Joe?
Yep, all three agree. I love this as well. He's played in both coverages, man and zone, so that helps him to adapt. And I think he's going to be an outside corner to begin with and then probably move into slot later in his career, but he has the ability to do both. And if he can take your number one weapon out, then, even last year, the QBs just weren't throwing to him. And I think sometimes when you just look at the stats and it's just like, it's not as, he's not as being tested, but it's because his coverage is so tight that people are just not throwing to him. He didn't allow his 0 touchdowns, 0 penalties committed in 2025. That just shows his ability. And he's just a smooth kind of cornerback, and just one of them what just makes it so easy. And he's also a good tackler. I think that's especially in the cornerback role, is something what's not always looked at or high up there, but he is. It can be aggressive tackler, and which we've seen with the Bengals, they do have that problem quite a lot. And I know they mentioned that the edges is a big need for the Bengals, but how many times have they taken edges this high and it's just not worked out? They're just not being able to produce or coach young edge rushers in Cincinnati. So getting that cornerback where they have been, they've had a strong cornerbacks in previous years. I think it's just a great fit, and just improve that defense to help that maybe for a team to score 28 or 30 instead of 40 when Joe Burrow does the opposite. So that's certainly what they need. So great pick. Love this pick as well for the Bengals.
Excellent. Thanks again to Sean Tyler, Huddle UK, writer of the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll move on to number 11. We've got the Miami Dolphins, again, first of their 2 first-round picks due to the recent trade of Jalen Waddle, which is the 30th pick later on. But they're picking at 11. Let's see who they take.
With the 11th pick in the draft, the Miami Dolphins select Francis Ongia, offensive tackle from Miami. As has been said often now, the Dolphins lost far too many battles in the trenches in recent seasons, and they're going to strengthen both on the offensive and defensive lines. Miami will become a 60% run-first team. Ongia is an elite level prospect and after probably a year playing guard, will move to tackle to replace Austin Jackson, and Miami will be set with Ungia and with Pat Paul, probably for the next 5 to 7 years. It's a good first step, and hopefully will solidify that offensive line and give Miami an opportunity to become a real contender over the next 2 or 3 years.
Thanks to Lee Dobbins there, Huddle UK writer for the Miami Dolphins, of course. And with the 11th pick in the Fans on the Clock draft, the Miami Dolphins select Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle, out of Miami. So played his college career in the Hard Rock Stadium. He's going to play his pro career in the Hard Rock Stadium, according to Lee. So yeah, what do we reckon? Some say the number one tackle on the board. He's the second one going here. Are we surprised so far? I've only seen 2 tackles go in the first 11 picks.
No, I don't think so hugely. Maybe, we've got Spencer Fano. I think he's the other one in contention there, but I think there's a lot of talk he might kick inside as well. So I think these 2, I think, going in the top 10-ish, I think makes total sense, yeah.
Yeah, again, Francis Mauigoa, again, one of the part of, again, just like Ruben Baby talked about, part of the Miami team that had a very, very successful year, beating in the national championship game, finished beat by Indiana. But again, the O-line was a huge part of that success. Yeah. Both lines for Miami, Trenches and Mauigoa as the standout on the O-line. I'm really impressed with the season that he had. Again, he's another 6'6", 315, good size. And talked about long been kind of talked about was going in the first round, and just sort of from recruitment, joining as a 5-star recruitment in Miami, he immediately entered the team as a full-time starter, and got a lot of all ACC honors as well in the last couple of years. Just a mix of that power, agility, ability to be nimble for such a big guy. I think he's very, very balanced, and where you stick him, if you stick him left or right, I'm interested to what Miami will do. I think he's just going to be an instant impact. Again, I think possibility could he be more productive at guard? Don't know, but that's the discussion for further down the line with him. What do we make of the selection?
I think this is exactly how Miami should be rebuilding, truthfully. Attack the trenches. It's such a real weak spot for them. Aaron Brewer, one of the best centers in the league. Then they've got Patrick Paul, who was drafted 2024 and has shown potential at left tackle. So I think shoring up right tackle makes a lot of sense. Mauigoa, I think he shows a lot of potential, a lot of plug and pay ability, though, immediately right off the bat. So again, these are the guys that you're going to trust to set your culture, I think, going forward. Obviously, huge changes in Miami. Got Jeff Hafley now in his head coach. Got a new OC in. They have got a new OC in Bobby Story, but new GM in as well. Full rebuild from last year. So be interested to see what the offense looks like. Got Malik Willis. Obviously, still got Devon Erchan. But outside of that, there's really no skill positions there. So I think that is something they're probably going to look at to do in the later picks and into 2027. Obviously, we've got another first-round pick coming, but it's really late. So I'm not sure. You can expect too much from whoever they're going to take at the end of the first to be an immediate impact player at, wide receiver or tight end. So I think attacking your trenches is just so important for Miami. It's been a weakness for a number of years now. Mike McDaniel managed to scheme around it for a lot of times, getting Tua to release that ball quicker than, as soon as he received it, essentially, to some really strong success a lot of time. But, when it went away, it went away. So yeah, I really like this pick. I just think it's just a really solid one. It's exactly what Miami need to do as part of their rebuild.
Excellent. Joe, thoughts on Mauigoa staying in Miami?
Yeah, I think this is a good pick. I think he's clearly good. I think he's going to play right tackle. I think he played at 99.5% of his snaps in college at right tackle. And with their current right tackle, Austin Jackson, just keeps getting injured every year. Another first-round pick for the Dolphins 5-6 years ago. So it makes sense playing him there. I feel like he's the true number one running offensive lineman tackle. So to get that in to pound the ball with, as Byron said, with no weapons. He also did catch a touchdown where he caught it 3 yards behind the scrimmage and got a touchdown against Syracuse. So they have got one extra weapon if he does go to them. So yeah, I do like it. And then you can see, get the right tackle. They're going to probably run a lot, especially with getting Willis in there as a QB. And then, he could establish himself as a great right tackle, or they could move him into guard if that's where they want to do in the future. But I think he's a big fella, especially his lower body is huge and is able to manhandle defenses, especially in the run game. And he might have to improve some of his passing passing game, but that's that's a lot of tackles coming out of college. So I think it's a good pick. Why get a weapon or anything like that when there's so much more you need to build? Why not get that line sorted and help the be one of the highest draft in fantasy if you get him and how that lineup's looking. So yeah, do like this pick.
Excellent. That is the number 11 pick done. It's time to move on to the Dallas Cowboys. We've got Paul Stewart from the World's Team and UK Cowboys fans making the picks. Let's see who Paul takes for the Cowboys, who've got, again, the first of 2 selections. And let's see who the Cowboys take at 12.
Hi, this is Paul from the World's Team, representing the Dallas Cowboys. With the good teams win, great teams cover. With the 12th pick overall, the Dallas Cowboys select Jamrod McCoy, cornerback from Tennessee. The reason why we selected him is because cornerback is a desperate need position. However, we do have our injury concerns with Jamrod McCoy. That did kind of get addressed during his pro day, which we were quite happy about. We feel a lot more confident with that. But the 18-month layoff does kind of concern us slightly. But I would say in terms of the best player available, McCoy would be one of those guys. We could have went linebacker, but I think we do need to address cornerback. But yeah, that's it. Jamrod McCoy, cornerback from Tennessee.
Thanks to Paul there, and a bonus appearance from his dog, getting involved in the pick. Always a winner with us here at Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. But yeah, make sure you go following the World's Team, the World's Teams podcast, and UK Cowboys fans as well, that Paul is a big part of. Thank you for the pick. And Jermod McCoy, the second corner, comes off the board, cornerback out of Tennessee. I suppose the big talking point from Paul mentioned it, and this would be the kind of the thing that would scare me as a Cowboys fan if they did make this move at 12, is the injuries. The Cowboys have got enough players that get injured on that defense, and having the recent years, I think it would just be a big risk to take it at 12. Somebody who's been out for 18 months, just coming off an ACL as well, and missing the entirety of the 2025 season. That would be a big worry. Joe, we'll start with you. What do you reckon to the Cowboys kind of addressing their secondary needs by taking McCoy here?
Yeah, it makes sense just with the players have lost and the injuries. I think this is that weird thing where it's like obviously Bland being injured, Diggs being injured, and obviously not on the team anymore. Then you get another injured guy. He is young enough. He's only 20 years old, so hopefully, and with what's happened in the combine, hopefully it alleviates them fears. And he is a good quarterback playing in man. So if he is, what people expected him before the injury and coming into the draft, that you've got your lockdown cornerback and you can play around that. And it feels like the Cowboys always needs their cornerbacks, because when they did have Bland and Diggs, that's when the defense were at its best. But yeah, it is a gamble with that injury. That is the problem. And he was a little bit, he needs to improve his discipline as well. So even when he played, he had 5 pass interference when he felt a bit grabby, when he was threatened downfield, and he also had a few other penalties as well. So you don't want that, especially, I'm guessing, as Cowboys fans, when the defense starts losing the plot and committing all these penalties, you don't want that. It's just, do you feel comfortable with that injury? I think that's the main thing. If he didn't have that injury, he'd probably go higher, and the Cowboys fans would be pretty pleased, and you wouldn't have this, oh no, not again, kind of cornerback coming back from injury.
I think kind of if the board goes how it has done in our draft, on draft night, I can see the Cowboys looking to trade out. Obviously, trade out at 12, maybe trade down a bit. They could do with another pick or 2 on day 2. They don't really have many. They've seen picks for 3rd from the Niners as part of the Osu Odigizua trade. But yeah, I think this is kind of, again, Sean for the Bengals talked about kind of a nightmare scenario for him at 10. I think this would be kind of that scenario for the Cowboys at 12. And Paul, in the messaging back and forth when he was sending the pick in, his preference would have been to trade out as well. So yeah, I feel like if this is the way the board goes, I can see the Cowboys moving down a couple of spots and maybe just giving themselves a bit more time and a few more resources to kind of snag some others and address some other needs. So I think kind of, again, being a full year since I've seen any games from Jermod McCoy, I think good over this kind of short area. He's got a good ability to break on the ball, a little bit maybe in. I feel like Darius Slay's like a good comparison, but there's the risk in that is you can get burned. So similar maybe to Diggs as well in that. He's got good ball skills, can get turnovers and picks, but yeah, just really worried about the impact because his fluidity and the ability to change directions is a huge part of his game, and how much has that been damaged, or has it been, with the knee injury? That's where I'm at. Byron, just as it's a Cowboy, a potential Cowboys pick, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what you're saying. And again, I'm sure that we're in that position of like, you know, Paul was wanting to trade down, I'm sure, because it does feel like the drop-off's there. You know, some more linemen, but like not really position of need. Edge would probably be a reach. I'd be interested maybe in the safety, Dylan Feineman, maybe. But again, is that a reach? And I just want to hold my hands up here as well. I talked about Mansour Delane, or Hugh Delane, as I'm calling him, a moment ago, tearing his ACL, which would have been news to everyone watching. I got him and McCoy mixed up in my head. McCoy coming off the ACL. And again, what I will say, and I'll repeat myself a little here, he has tested, and he has shown that he's already got his blazing speed back. He's running 4.38 at his pro day. I mean, pro day, whatever, maybe it was a 4.7, but he is running. He's willing to, compete. I definitely hear them, but again, cornerback a big need. And one of the things that I think is maybe important here is Christian Parker has such a strong record of training up DBs. So again, giving him the weaponry to boost this, room that has pieces, but like doesn't have a guy, I don't think right now that you would go like, okay, he's who's going to like snatch the ball away. I don't think you're looking at a shadow corner here. I think you are looking at someone opportunistic, like you mentioned with Trevon Diggs there. So ultimately, I think when you look at what's available, maybe a wide receiver, if Pickens, that trade did happen, but none of these things did happen. No trade downs available. George Pickens is on the team. I can't beat him up for taking McCoy, and we just hope that the injury is past him and, his best is yet to come.
Excellent. That is the first Cowboys picking at 12. Let's move on to number 13. Unlucky for some, we've got the LA Rams on the clock with what is the Atlanta Falcons pick that they got in the James Pierce Jr. trade last year. So let's see who the Rams select with that gift from the Atlanta Falcons.
This is Sam from the AEW Network. The Rams pick with the 13th pick, Jordan Tyson, wide receiver. This guy is just a great versatile wide receiver. He's a deep ball threat, and you're securing your wide receivers for the future, with Devontae Adams probably looking at moving on after this year. And it just gives Matt Stafford another weapon.
Thanks to Sam there, another member of the AAW network. Catch Sam, I think mainly on the College Football UK show as part of the network, and others as well. But thank you, Sam, LA Rams fan. And Jordan Tyson, another wide receiver, our second wide receiver off the board. Ken, I'll tell you when at 7. Tyson goes to the Rams at 13. Are the Rams just in a position where kind of that position that so few are in, so just like whoever we think the best player is at 13 we can take?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, we've seen Chris Greer get the best out of that defense with not much spending over the years. And, we did see last year when, Puka had to miss time, they went really heavy on that 13 personnel because I think, truthfully, there was none of the other receivers who would step up, whether that was, come from Winfield or, I forget the other guy, Jordan Whittington. Just, they couldn't quite step up and be role players even. And I think that's maybe why they went so heavy on that 13 personnel. They've been rumored to be in the A.J. Brown sweepstakes. And, they're not really a team with huge glaring needs. Again, you could maybe go corner, but, 2 corners already gone now. I think this is a real nice fit. Maybe if you look at Devontae Adams as a 1-year thing. Matthew Stafford's maybe just a 1-year thing. You go all in on this year, maybe. But Tyson, I think he has some of them traits that I think McVay loves. Like, we've seen Tyson is willing to block. And I think that is such an integral. We've seen it with Cooper Kupp. We've seen it with Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams, not so much, really. He's much more just a route runner who gets open. But I think McVay will love Jordan Tyson. Come in, and I just think he's got the right attitude. He grinds. And, yeah, he's obviously a very, very high-level talent as well on top of all that. So, yeah, I think just one of them picks, like you say, just, we don't have a huge need. Who is the best player regardless of position? And, I mean, wide receiver is not even a luxury pick, really. So, works out really well for them.
Yeah. Joe, what are your thoughts on Tyson to the Rams?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the Rams are in the perfect spot, getting from the Falcons, who's, first round pick is probably not going to play next year. So yeah, they could just go wherever they want. You mentioned like about that, but obviously they spent big with the trade and bringing in Jalen Watson in free agency. So it feels like they've tackled that bit. And when you look at that third wide receiver and downwards, it is a bit, scrape the barrel and what's happening with Puka Nacua this offseason. Who has any idea what's going to happen in the next couple of months with him? Hopefully all's good and he's playing. But yeah, good. I think that the biggest decision is, do you go Tyson or do you go Lemon? Obviously the different kind of wide receivers and how it fits in to the overall scheme. So I think that's just really like the Rams worry if they want to go wide receiver. It's just which one will fit best. And, Sean McVay's usually pretty good in identifying that. So I think it's it's a great pick, and some of the comps I've seen for him is Rams legend Torrey Holt. So if you get if he's anywhere near Torrey Holt, they'll be very happy with this pick. So good one for the Rams to just keep getting better and better and keep scoring plenty of points.
Excellent. Yeah, I think Tyson for me is as a sort of player. Again, very versatile. I think he's got that again blend, that size, speed, but also like the finesse in the route running as well, which I think they'll love. If he does end up with the Rams, just very dynamic, and I think would complement what kind of the Rams of what the other wide receivers in Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams do at the Rams. So again, it's adding to it. It's not really a repeat of either of them. And again, it just you've got to cover them all. You kind of one of them is going to hurt you and hurt you real bad. Plus what we saw them do with the tight ends last year as well at times, so with a different set. So, yeah, real interesting. Great place to go learn as well for Tyson, maybe be, working with Devontae Adams maybe for a year or two, depending on how long Devontae's got left. Could really accelerate his development as well, I think. So, yeah, great prospect. I know I spoke to RJ about him before, as a sort of from Arizona State alum, and, yeah, really big fan, and, it'd be interesting to see kind of how he takes the step to the next level. But the Rams will be a fantastic landing spot for him.
Yeah. I would only say the only probably worry is just his injury history, that he does get injured more seasons, and he's not the biggest guy, and he's not really like a yak kind of person. So again, stepping up into the big leagues when you're going to get hit hard, hopefully he can just stay on the field and produce them. But again, at least he doesn't have to be the number one guy. He could be the number 3, maybe number 4 or 5 with all the tight ends they've got. So it'll be a great slot for him.
Excellent. Embarrassment of riches goes on for the LA Rams. Right, we're on to pick number 14. We've got the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. So we've got Tom, a representative from Ravens across the pond. So let's see who Tom selects. Hopefully does a better job of being Rams GM than Eric DeCosta has done recently. So let's see who Tom takes at number 14. Vega Ioane taken by Tom there for the Ravens, the guard inside our line out of Penn State. What do you think we're getting out of Ioane then for the Ravens at 14?
Plug and play guard players. Think what we're going to get. Really high floor. Not sure the ceiling, obviously, with a guard. Even if you Quentin Nelson, I'm not going to say Vega's hitting, all pro levels, but I think he's going to come in and be an instant contributor. I think it's really interesting fit. Declan Doyle of the Ben Johnson School of OCs, first-time coordinator. We've seen in Detroit and then Chicago how important a strong line is to those offenses, and I think that's kind of played into that decision here. Jesse Mint will get guys on defense in time, I'm sure, but now they've lost Tyler Linderbaum in the interior of that offensive line. I think this is a really solid, kind of no-nonsense pick, really high ceiling. Like I say, this guy going to come in and be a 7 out of 10, I think, immediately, and just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah, I'm interested because again, we talked a little bit about size. Obviously, he's a huge unit. He's a thick guy. My kind of concerns with him is about kind of that mobility is a little bit lacking compared to when you look at some of the other prospects. But a bit of that is just due to his pure size, I think. So yeah, not exactly. You can look a bit lumpy, so you're not going to be moving him and kind of like pulling him and things like that as a guard. I don't think. I don't think he's got that in his locker. I think he's just very stout. I think anything inside his frame he's good at. When people start like not coming across his face, rushing across his face and things like that. And that's when I think he can get found out and find it a bit difficult. Obviously, he will develop, but obviously he's so strong in the upper body. Like I said, anything in his frame he's really, really good at. It can be quite dominant. So think he will, he's a bit of a mauler, people mover interior on the run game. And just when things get a bit more exotic, some defensive coordinators can throw it in the three guys inside. That's where I think he might get found out. But yeah, Joe, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably not the best to be, in front of Lamar Jackson then if you have to constantly move around. So that might be an issue, just over from what you said. But I think him as a player, again, he's one of them where it's like he feels like he's clearly the best guard in this draft, just the size. He's just who he is as a person, as a professional as well. I saw a lot of at the combine that said he just absolutely nailed it. And it just looks like an NFL player who's going to be playing for a certain team, whoever he goes, 12, 15 years. And yeah, he's just a great kind of run blocker. And he was part of the Penn State offensive line. 0 sacks allowed and 0 holding flags the last 2 years. I think he only had 1 flag, which was a false start in the last year. And I think what's a good sign is that he's improved every single year there as well, or every 3 years. And I think that's sometimes, again, that's not appreciated much, that he does show improvement. And then you can expect, he has that professional way. He hasn't just come in as the bee's knees and he's just stagnated or he's dropped off. He has improved, so you can hopefully keeps going in the NFL. I just worry about the fit. Just what you mentioned with Lamar Jackson, 14 for a guard. They're not a team which is a luxury to just choose the best player and maybe have someone for the future. They need starters now if they want to maximize Lamar Jackson's whereabouts he is in his career. He is going to want Super Bowls. He wants to get further in the playoffs, and will a guard ultimately take the Baltimore to that level? They did bring in John Simpson, so obviously this will help him transition and he can learn under someone. But I just worry for 14, picking a guard for a team who realistically we expect to challenge for that AFC North title and possibly in the playoffs as well. Do you need a bigger time player to just hit the ground running now and contribute rather than go forward? But because I know that's been the Ravens, how the Ravens have played in the past, but it feels like at some point it's okay, this team needs to go further. They need to actually do something and hit the ground running, because Lamar Jackson's only going to be Lamar Jackson for a couple of more years. I think he hasn't got another 10 years to wait out.
Excellent, cool. That is the Ravens at 14. Thank you, Tom from Ravens Across the Pond, for the pick. Go follow those guys relatively. I think they've been going the last few months. So yeah, building a bit of their own network, the Across the Pond network as well, covering baseball, other teams, sports in general. So yeah, go give those a follow. Also, they're going to be part of the Stacked draft party on draft night, which is down at the Hippodrome Casino, Leicester Square. They've got a great guest attending, part of the 85 Bears, Sean Gale, who we used to see a lot on Sky Sports. So he's going to be there, Super Bowl 20 champion. You can get your tickets. I think they're a tenner. What can you get for a tenner in London, in central London? Sod all. But you can get a ticket to Stack's party where the Ravens Across the Pond are going to be as well. So yeah, covering the draft from the very first pick to the last one at 4 a.m. on April the 23rd in Paddy Power's Sportsbook at the Hippodrome Casino. That's the promo. We pick 15. It's the Bucks, and our friends at the Bucks UK are going to be making the picks. Let's see who they select.
This is Jamie here from the Bucks UK, the longest running UK fan club since 1984. And if you're a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can join us at bucksuk.org. But now to the serious stuff. With the 15th pick in the draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select edge from the University of Miami, Akeem Messidor. Welcome to the crew.
Thanks to Jamie there from Bucks UK. Make sure you go follow at Bucks UK if you're a Bucks fan or not. The longest running NFL UK fan club. Been going since 1984, which is really cool. So shout out to the guys for continuing to run one of the best fan clubs in the country. Akeem Messidor, very enthusiastic pick from Jamie. He's really excited to get Akeem Messidor. What do we think? Another Miami player staying in state and going to the Bucks. Do you think edge is an area the Bucks do need some support in?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they haven't had a double-digit sack since 2021. I think it was Shaq Barrett. Yaya Diaby's led the last couple of years. Vita Vea the year before that. It was 22, but it's been a while anyway since I've had somebody who can dominate on the edge. Tried it with Sam Reddick last year, brought in Ashawn Robinson, try and get somewhere going this year. But I think, it's a huge need. And I think Todd Bowles really needs a dominant defense this year. Obviously, they've lost Mike Evans on offense and another offensive coordinator change. So I think it's realistic that they could see a downgrade on offense, and therefore Todd Bowles really needs that defense to step up. I think this is a real big year for Bowles in terms of keeping his job. I sneaky don't like the Bucs roster this year, so getting someone who can come in and contribute as a pass rusher immediately, I think, is really important. And Messidor, I think, considering where we're at in the draft, I think he's an absolute fine gamble. I don't think you're getting a stud here, but I think he's someone who can come in and he can produce, he can get sacked. So I think it's certainly worth the gamble. It's certainly a position of need.
Excellent. Joe, thoughts on Akeem Messidor to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, I think most what Byron said, and probably the good thing is he's probably only going to get one contract because he's 25 on the draft weekend.
Yeah.
So that is the gamble you're going for. Older player, he's had his injuries as well. It feels like a lot of these players around this position have that like huge upside. Obviously, got how many sacks he got throughout his whole time there. He got 52.5 career tackles for loss and 35.5 sacks. So it was obviously a sack machine. He got 12.5 last year, so he can get to the rusher. But again, is that because he's 24 and the guy's just playing at like 19, 20? So it's that's the gamble you take with game. But obviously, when you're at the middle rounds, you're hoping for someone with high ceiling, and hopefully he's got a decent floor. It's just that's the only worry, that he's a lot older, and the injuries is that you're gambling on that. And I totally agree. That defense in Tampa has not really performed the last few years, which is supposed to be Todd Bowles' calling card, and it's not worked out. So if they have another year like they did last year, I think he could be gone. So he needs to improve that defense, and maybe there's a few edges around this where he could have gone, but just for the sack production, it makes sense, and there has been mocked there. It's just the issues which there could be worried for.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the point where there's then a bit of a drop off from the edges in terms of like great ones to good ones. I think the age and the injuries, they're kind of the red flags for me, so to speak, as we've got the Buccaneers red Jolly Roger up on the screen. But yeah, it's that'd be the worry. He just sort of exploded last year as well. He'd been semi, and then he just kind of had that explosion last year and almost led the country in a lot of the pressure statistics. But again, is there an element of that, talked about his age, also kind of the benefit of playing with Bain as well? Is that kind of a byproduct that he, was able to kind of fill up on some of the stats because Bain was getting a little bit more of the attention? So all those things to think about, but certainly an area of need for the Bucs. And thanks again to Jamie from Bucs UK. Right, we're on the last pick of this episode, so we're going to end part 1 after pick 16. And we've got friend of the show, Gurmeet from Fantasy Game Day, the UK's best NFL daily fantasy platform. Not said that in a while because we've not obviously been doing the shows for it, but they are working on some great things Gurmeet's going to tell you about in his pick video, and we can't wait for the season to start so we can all start playing Fantasy Game Day again. But Gurmeet is also a huge New York Jets fan, so let's see who they take with their second pick of the Fans on the Clock draft.
Hi guys, my name's Gurmeet. I'm one of the co-founders of Fantasy Game Day. Two of us, Ankit and myself, are both Jets fans. We have the honour of making the 16th pick in this mock draft, and it's going to have to be Makai Lemon at wide receiver. He would be great to pair with Garrett Wilson. Gino's under centre this season, but we're sort of looking ahead to 2027, and Lemon and Garrett Wilson would be a pretty tasty pair at wide receiver. So that's our pick with 16. Looking forward to unveiling some more daily fantasy games with our app Fantasy Game Day come September. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Gurmeet and Ankit there for making the selection. The guys from Fantasy Game Day, if you're not part of it already, make sure you are when the season starts. The UK's best daily fantasy platform. Can play great NFL fantasy games, win yourself lots of money. What's not to love? Gurmeet and Ankit have picked Makai Lemon for the New York Jets at 16. Does this feel a good slot for the Jets to take a wide receiver at with their second pick in the first round here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you look at that You know, you don't want to draft for need, obviously, but when your wide receiver 2 is, I mean, one of my favorites, obviously, but it doesn't actually do much, Adonai Mitchell. And your slot wide receiver is a person called Isaiah Williams, who I think I've just read his name for the first time today. It's obviously a screaming need. Even Mason Taylor at tight end, you know, an okay rookie season. Didn't have much to work with, truthfully. You know, when Brady Cook's throwing you the ball, I don't think you can blame any of the pass catchers there. But having someone who can take that pressure off Garrett Wilson, maybe get him towards a competent offense, which, I mean, you know, Frank Reich will bring. I don't know as much as maybe he's had some dinging as a head coach. I think he's a really good OC and should bring a flaw, certainly, that you might not get with a, you know, more of a gamble, inexperienced head coach who might have a higher ceiling, let's be fair, as well. But I think Lemon, he has everything you would want. I think the obvious comp is, and it's a high-level one in terms of play style, maybe not ceiling, I'm talking here, is Amon-Ra St. Brown, someone who can get open in the middle of the field, take them big hits, will take those big catches, really tough, really strong. The only thing I've heard negative on Makai Lemon, there was some kind of talk coming out of the combine of like his interview style, maybe didn't take it as seriously as others would like, maybe a bit of a personality clash with some reporters, it seemed like. Not like a clash, but like just a bit of a jarring kind of personality, maybe. But I think on terms of pure talent, I think you've got to look at it as just going to be a smash. And I think as long as that personality stuff isn't too extreme, I don't think this Lemon's going to leave a bitter taste. So,
hey, excellent, Joe. Follow up that then. So, what do you reckon of? What do you think of kind of Lemon's outlook is, and how does he fit in with the New York Jets?
Yeah, it's clearly going to be the slot guy. When you just look at what he did at college, he mainly lined up as the inside receiver, and you know the Jets need that. They need someone to just give the ball. You know, I know Gino is one of Byron's favourites as well. It's going to be awful of favourites. Maybe Byron turns to a Jets fan this year. But he needs that outlet, and I think what Lemon brought, when he was at USC, he sometimes made the quarterback just with some of the throws. His catch rate is incredible. It was only 2.8% career drop rate in his career. He was he had the most amount of first downs as well last year in college. So having that kind of player, I think with the Jets, you got to think long term as well. They're not going to be a team who suddenly just challenges. They need to get plenty of positions filled. They got their blue chip talent early in the draft. Why not get a player to work off? Because Garrett Wilson, there's been rumblings like the last few years. Is he happy there? Does he want to go? And all that kind of stuff. So to get that second wide receiver to help him out. I think Lemon, and he's been the number one guy at USC, so he knows how to cope with that, cope with the pressure, and just a competitive guy all around. And even though he doesn't have the size and athletic profile or like huge athletic traits, what he does bring is just get them first downs, just keep the ball moving. And that's what feels like what was the issue with Jets last year, with how many times Justin Fields was minus 60 during a game, because they just couldn't stay on the field. And maybe when you look at that defense, you think, oh, they've actually got some talent on there. And maybe the issue was they were just on the field way too much last year. So having a player like Lemon just to keep it going, keep them drives going, and then it's Garrett Wilson to make the big plays. I think it's a great 1-2 combination for Gino to work with, and hopefully a future star for the Jets going forward.
Yeah, another case here, somebody who does a lot of things really, really well. I think Makai Lemon's great at finding kind of the soft spots in zones, that awareness and IQ to kind of know when to sit, know when to kind of, get yourself open by almost at times not moving. He's really good in and out of breaks. I think he's really quick out of breaks, especially. I think it's probably one area. He's weird. It's obviously, it was like 5'11", 180 something. That's about right, isn't it? Yeah, 195, 5'11". Not necessarily the biggest, so against the longer corners could struggle, and that's probably why actually coming inside playing slot will be really, really good for him. I think physically, he's great at kind of contested catches, but then I think you can jam him up at the line. I think like if you press him and jam him up, he really struggles to release there and beat that, because he doesn't have the physicality to do so. So I think that can be how slot corners and corners just get in the NFL. But again, there's he needs to get a bit stronger, maybe put on a few more pounds, and that will help with that stuff. But I think there's enough other areas that he's really, really good where he can excel and be, really, really reliable receiver. And it might sound like a unfair comparison. Giants receiver who's just gone to the Titans. Wandale Robinson. Yeah, I feel like seeing a bit of that with him. Amon Ra's a much better favourable comparison. I get that, but I see like what Wandale Robinson's done over the last couple of years in Kyle Lemon. You have catching, he's caught 190 passes over the last 2 years in the NFL. So if he produces those numbers, then he's going to have a good start to his career. But yeah, I like the pick, and yeah, just having a need for the Jets. They need some more reliability in that pass catching core. Excellent. That is the first half of our fans on the clock draft done and in the books. Thank you to everybody who's put in their selection for the first half. We've currently got then, heading into part 2, the Detroit Lions on the clock. So we'll kick off part 2 with the Lions selection, and we'll do picks 17 through 32. Hope you've enjoyed the first half. Hopefully you've got some insights on the top draft prospects that have been, how they may fit with potential teams. We'll see how many of them actually go where they've been projected to go to here come draft night. But thanks to everyone that's taken part. Thanks for the videos. Shout out the Saints guys again. Saints City of me. That was a phenomenal 3 minutes. Maybe the best 3 minutes of my life. Who knows? And make sure you're following Good Teams Win Great Teams cover, available on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, plus others, and check out the video version on YouTube with some great graphics and the great videos so you can see them all. And follow us Twitter, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok at GTW_GTC. And we'll see you in a few days' time for part 2 of Fans on the Clock Draft 2026.